Hello, and welcome to a very special update from the William Branham Historical Research Podcast. I'm your host, John Collins, the author and founder of William Branham Historical Research at william-branham.org, and with me I have my co-host, researcher, minister, and friend, Charles Paisley, the founder of ChristianGospelChurch.org. And together, we're examining some very interesting information that has just came in. Charles, I got really excited and I called you. I was just blown away that we actually found this. We knew it existed. Both of us had talked about it, but somebody has sent me a mountain of old artifacts of the message cult, some of them actually predating William Branham's early history that we knew of in the cult. And one of the things that we've been looking for forever is the original copy of the Heavenly Vision tract. I was not disobedient to the Heavenly Vision. You can see how thin these things are. These were for sale, and if you open them up and look, you can see in the back, you can get 3 for 25 cents, Charles. And we've got, some of these things are very, very old. They're worth gold. Some of these tracts, we've got Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. This one is interesting. Divine Healing in the Branham Campaigns, which is a tract that they sold. It's only, you see how thin this is. But basically, this was a disclaimer. If William Branham doesn't heal you, it's not our fault.
It's really interesting because those two that you have in your hand, the orange one, the Heavenly Vision, and then the blue one, what Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever, right? Those are the two oldest tracts that we know in existence from the ministry of William Branham. And I have photocopies of those original versions, but I didn't actually have a hard copy of the original. So it's very exciting to get our hands on the original. And what we know is that the versions of those that are in existence today had the dates changed in them.
Yes.
So the dates are changed in those, but the very original versions of those have dates that tear apart the history of the message. And so it's very exciting to get our hands on some of those originals.
Exactly. This is fascinating, Charles. If I look at these these tracts and I see a different version of William Branham than the one that I grew up with, right? We were taught this mythology of a person who was running from the presence of the Lord, and so much that his wife and child was, killed by God over this. And then one day, and he gives the date. He gives May the 6th, 1947. That's a very critical day for the message, May the 6th, 1947, because in the version of the stage persona that I grew up with, Charles, that is the day that transitions William Branham from just a normal, humble minister from Jeffersonville, Indiana, to an angel came down and gave him a commission to heal the sick. So prior to this, he was just an ordinary minister. This alleged angel comes down, and you can hear the story as he tells them over and over and over again. Billy Paul, his son, tells these stories about, the time that he was able to meet the angel. But prior to this date, May the 6th, 1947, he was not a divine healer or faith healer, or however you want to call him. He was just an ordinary minister, and then he was given a commission to heal the sick.
What's really interesting when you tell that story, so you're from the main sect, and you got the 1947 date. So our sect up the street used the 1946 date.
Wow.
For the same event, okay? So, and again, we had people who were with him through those things, so I think that, we were slightly closer. But the thing is, neither of those dates are right. It's actually even before that. And that's what is in these tracts, which we've known has been in the originals for some time. When we recorded, I think, episode 12, and we examined William Branham's Angelic Commission, we did cover all this in detail, but what we've come across here, I feel like is really the final nail in all of the evidence to prove that William Branham's Angelic Commission story, as I believed it the 1946 version, as you believed it the 1947 version, is a total scam. Right?
Yeah.
These never happen, and that is what this is the most absolute rock solid proof of. Now we've got a multiple vectors. I think we've got 5 to 6 solid multiple vectors of witness that William Branham's Angelic Commission story, every single version of it, is false.
Absolutely. For me, I'm kind of overwhelmed that we were able to piece this together. The person who sent us this had no idea the value of what they had sent. But more than that, I had no idea until I opened it up and started reading and was able to actually find some hardcore evidence. William Branham changed his stage persona. We've known that all along. And William Branham had previous publications of a different version of himself. Where it gets real problematic, Charles, is that if you look at who is publishing these things, it's not just William Branham that's publishing it. It means that every person who is involved or was involved with the publication of William Branham's books, tracts, history, every one of these people knew that this was a lie. So this is hardcore evidence that not only was William Branham being deceptive and just outright lying, every single person along the way who has printed these, these things were passed out around the nation, Charles. This is a big deal. What's really interesting is that for a long time, someone had given me photocopies of the first 4 pages of this book, of this tract. And in the first section, there was a statement. It said, in the month of March 1945, there was a vision that came to me. And when you take that statement alone, combined with the tract that's talking about his divine healing, well, you can say that the vision came in 1945 and then the healing revival. And the problem is, anyone can say, well, he had the vision in 1945, but then the rest of the tract is talking about after May the 6th, 1947, when he gets the Angelic Commission. But again, I was only given the first 4 pages, and searching online, you could only find the first 4 pages of the original copy. You could never find the pages after this. This tract has actually, I'll hold it up for the camera, but it's got 28 pages to this tract. And on the 5th page, the one that I wasn't given, if you look at, and I'll put it up on the screen for the camera to see, but if you look at the 5th page, there it talks about when this revival series began. And it says, and I'm reading here, this is an account of the fulfillment of a vision given Reverend William Branham by our Lord Jesus Christ. We left Jeffersonville in a car on the beautiful morning of June the 14th, 1945, and drove to a New Albany for Sister Gertrude Gibbs, and then started for St. Louis, Missouri. And not just this alone, that's problematic, obviously, but because of this date, June the 14th, 1945, Charles, I was able to find hardcore evidence that William Branham and every single person who has been aware of this tract was lying to the people.
Right, and let me hone in like a laser on the beyond a shadow of a doubt evidence in this, okay? So, when William Branham told the Angelic Commission story, the earliest version of the Angelic Commission story is 1946. There's a version 1946, there's a version 1947, and there's a version 1948. So there's 3, and one is in his living room, another is in a cabin, and the last being in a cave, right? In each of these, the angel comes to him. He tells, you're going to get the 2 signs like Moses, and he's commissioned to go off onto his healing ministry. And in each of those versions, 46, 47, 48, immediately after that, he gets the call from St. Louis by Reverend Daugherty. He goes to St. Louis, he heals the Reverend Daugherty's daughter, and his ministry explodes, and he becomes the great famous evangelist, right? 46, 47, 48. The problem is, that actually happened in 1945. He went to St. Louis, and Daugherty's daughter was healed in 1945, right? And in 1945, the story about how his ministry got started is wrote in this book, The Heavenly Vision. I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision. And guess what? It is not an angelic commission story. Okay, this proves to us that he invented the angelic commission story sometime after he really had started his ministry as far as the big healing lines and stuff in 1945. And based on everything we know, it really appears that it was the year 1947 when he started working with Gordon Lindsay that he created the Angelic Commission story, right? I find there's no evidence that Angelic Commission story existed before 1947 when he started working with Gordon Lindsay. He switched campaign managers at that time. And that's the point in time it seems like he decided, all right, I got to change the start date of my ministry, and I've got to invent this Angelic Commission story. But what we have here in that book, which we've had some photocopies of it before, is proof that he actually started his ministry in 1945 and healed Daugherty's daughter in 1945. So that is the key detail that is in every version of the story. It's in the 45 version, it's in the 46 version, it's in the 47 version, it's in the 48 version, is that he healed Daugherty's daughter right after the commission. But what we have in the evidence is 45 is definitely the correct version. And 45, there is no angelic commission in that version.
Right. And there's some other points of significance. First off, the fact that Daugherty's daughter was healed. I can hear immediately all of the people who are pro William Branham saying, well, he healed, so it doesn't matter, the commission. But it does matter, because this has a different commission. There is no angel. This has a commission to heal the sick that's based off of a quote-unquote heavenly vision. And after this, William Branham goes on a campaign for healing the sick. Well, once he does this, Charles, there's no need for an angel to come and do this thing in 1947. Not only that, you've got the history from 1945 to 1947 where he's doing this thing. And if you read the rest of this tract, it very clearly identifies William Branham as a healing evangelist who is already doing this thing. So he is, in 1947 and after, he's totally reinventing himself. Now, we had on the website, I've got it labeled the first mention of the Branham Tabernacle. We have in October, Reverend Daugherty coming back to Jeffersonville to see William Branham, and it's the very first mention of the Branham Tabernacle. It's when William Branham reinvents himself and becomes a quote-unquote Baptist minister. Prior to this, it's the Billy Branham Pentecostal Tabernacle. And it was actually, before that, it was Roy Davis's Pentecostal Baptist Church of God. So that transition happened. It was when he reinvented himself that he renamed it to Branham Tabernacle. But because of the date that's given on page 5 of this, June 14th, 1945, is the date that they leave for St. Louis. Charles, I've been looking for this forever in the newspapers because I was looking in October. October is when Reverend Daugherty came back to Jeffersonville. So I looked October, I looked, 1 month before, 1 month after, trying to see when was this revival. But this gives the date June. So I started scouring the newspapers in St. Louis, and I finally found it. There is a misspelling of William Branham's name, which made all of my searches fail. But if I look at this newspaper from St. Louis, and the date on this one is June 20th, 1945. There are actually 3 of these newspaper advertisements. It reads, Great Revival for the Sick, Evangelist William Branham, Branan, so they misspelled it, William Branham conducting service at the Pentecostal Gospel Tent nightly at 7:45. The address is 4328 North Broadway, to help the blind, lame, and those otherwise afflicted. All denominations welcome. Brother Daugherty, pastor. So we've got, Charles, the tract that has a totally different, non-angelic commission that gives the date of this revival campaign. They left June the 14th, 1945. We can confirm that just a few days later, he's there holding the revival in St. Louis. And then in October, Reverend Daugherty comes back to Jeffersonville. And by that time, they've renamed it from the Pentecostal Tabernacle to the Branham Tabernacle. And from there, it's history. That's where William Branham completely reinvents himself. He becomes a Baptist minister. He introduces the claim that he's running from the Pentecostal call, and therefore God smote his wife and daughter in the 1937 flood. That whole story, every single bit of the fictional mythology that we believed, all of it, Charles, is unraveled because a very good friend has sent me this.
Very powerful, John. And you're right. I mean, again, we have solid evidence to put this in 1945, because besides, you mentioned the William Branham's own personal testimony in this article is that it was 1945. If you read through further in that book, John, you'll also find a recorded testimony in there by Robert Daugherty himself. Robert Daugherty also says it was 1945. We have, as you found, the newspaper article from William Branham's meetings there in 1945 in St. Louis, where Daugherty's daughter was healed. And we also have a couple months later where Daugherty comes to the Branham Tabernacle. You're correct. So again, all incredibly powerful evidence that this healing of Betty Daugherty happened in 1945, overturning, beyond a shadow of a doubt, all of the versions of the Angelic Commission story. They are all beyond a shout demonstrably false. And here's the thing, too. 1945, so when he was out there, that was before World War II ended. That was also before the United Pentecostal Church was formed, right? This is a very interesting time for William Branham to be doing these things in St. Louis, isn't it?
Yeah.
And again, it completely breaks the theology of the history of the early part of the message. It really is something else. And of course, as I mentioned, it really does appear the evidence to be that it's when he came back, we started working with Gordon Lindsay in 1947. That is the point at which he revised all of this stuff into the stories we're more familiar with in the message. And here's the thing. This is why this is so important. There's a reason this is so important. Is because every biography you go to of William Branham, whether it's God's Generals, whether it's A Man Sent from God, whether it's David Edwin Harrell's All Things Are Possible, whether it's the scholarly biographies like Doug Weaver's book, The Healer Prophet, every single book gets these dates wrong. There is not a single biography out there that gets these things right. These dates totally and fundamentally undermine the Angelic Commission of William Branham's ministry, right? And so I think in combination with all of the other things that we know are wrong, with the problems with the cloud and his commission to open the seals, which we know is flawed, whether it's the baptismal story, which we know is got flaws, whether it is, the early stuff that he told us before he was even born, some of that stuff that was supposed to happen, whether it's even some of the things in the middle, everything that we would base the ministry on to say William Branham got this authority from God. Every single one of those commission things is full of holes. There is not a one that actually stands up to scrutiny when you compare it to the historical facts, the historical evidence. William Branham has just end-to-end deceived us concerning every single commission that he claimed to have got from God. There is not a one of them that does not have massive holes in it like this. And you're left with just nothing to base his authority on, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, Charles, this is exciting. It's about to get more exciting. I have, I don't know if you can see, I'll put it up for the camera, but there's so many different books to go through. There were, I want to say it was 12 big boxes of stuff. It'll take me the next 5 years to go through all of this stuff, Charles. One of the most interesting finds that I came across besides this heavenly vision is this tract, which everybody seeing it is going to recognize, because this is the Houston Press paper that we put in our podcast that is talking about the debate between Reverend Best and Bosworth. This was formed into a tract that had the 7 church ages on the back, and this was passed around the message. And if you open it up, Charles, to about page 4, there is a photograph of Reverend Best shaking his fist at Bosworth, which William Branham said not a single photograph would develop. God would not permit it. And said Reverend Best shook his fist like this at Bosworth, and God would not permit the camera to take that photograph. So everyone in the message, including the people, the heads of it, the people who are printing this stuff, they are aware that this is mythology. And there's much more than we can talk through right now, and I don't want to give out too many secrets of what we've got, but let's just say we've got some very interesting things coming.
That's exciting, John. I look forward to looking through some of those things. Some of them I have in my collection, and there's a few there that I don't, so I definitely look forward to looking through what you got. You're right on the picture of the debate at the Sam Houston Coliseum, too. I mean, those things, again, put holes in William Branham's story about what was supposed to happen there, right? I mean, why is it that nothing he said matches the facts? Why? Like, can we find one thing that this man said that actually matches the facts? It's something else.
It is unbelievable. Well, I'm excited, Charles, and stay tuned for the podcast. We're going to be dissecting some new information. And if you want to listen in, we put it out on Mondays, or you can find us at william-branham.org.